So this is the 2 plus 3 plus 1 sequence. 2 questions up front to ensure you get your performer to be focused and to understand how his performance will be measured. 3 questions to reinforce learning and to help the person be able to extract out of that work experience to become a learning experience. And the last question is to transfer that learning into future actions and future opportunities. Hi, this is KCC with our Managing Performance series. Today, I'm going to talk about change. There are many people talking about change. The subject is extensive, and often people will tell you one thing. There's only one thing that's constant, and that is change. So, change is constant, and therefore we need to deal with it. Now, as a manager and a supervisor, you realize that things are changing all the time. The market change, customers change, customers demand change, expectation change. Various situations creates all kinds of scenarios that will be different from the past. And the only way that we as managers, supervisors, that can cope with this and to be able to do well in dealing with all these changes is to make internal changes ourselves. In other words, in order for you to cope with the changes externally, you must start making changes internally. And that's all fine. If you're doing it by yourself, you could probably convince yourself to make those necessary changes because you want to improve yourself, because you want to do better, you want to get better impact with your relationship with whoever you're dealing with. Now, the challenge is having to help your staff make changes, having to help your team members make those changes. So, is there a simple process conceptually that we can use to enable us to manage change with our team members? Of course, there are many processes and tips and ideas on this area, but today I want to talk about the ABC of change. ABC. So the first thing is the first ABC. In order for change to happen, you must have what we call awareness before change. That's the first ABC. In order for your team member to make any changes, you must make them be aware of the changes that are required. Why is it required? Why is it important? And we have to be specific and, of course, convincing why those changes are there. So if we feedback, and we do that constantly as a manager, we should do that, and provide feedback to our team members, and they are aware of some of the things that are not going well, or some of the things that are not doing exactly the way we want it or the company wants it, that awareness is very important. But the second ABC is critical. The second ABC is acceptance before change. So you can get somebody to be aware of the changes you require of the person. You can help the person be aware of his behavior or his action that require changes. But if it does not accept it, it's not going to happen. So the second acceptance before change is the critical part. And you as a manager, supervisor, needs to be able to get the person to be willing to accept that changes is necessary. Now, nobody will change because you ask him to. Not just because you ask him to. People must feel the need for making those changes, personally. Of course, you can explain to a person why the company needs you to make a change, but it could be irrelevant if that doesn't impact him personally. So, the company needs these changes to happen, and how these changes is important for him as well. Because people always look at things from their point of view and their own consequence and their own results and their own benefits too. So if you relate it only to the organization without seeing how they can be aligned with his direction, his goal, his desire, then there will be a break in this particular process. Acceptance before change comes from understanding the other person's needs, understanding your workforce needs, understanding your colleague needs, in order for you to get the person to accept change. The last ABC is action brings change. Action brings change. Now, if you have acceptance of the changes, but you don't translate it to action that you want the person to do, it's probably not going to get done. Because the idea is there, the focus may be there, but how to go about it is another issue. So I want to go out there and be able to do better. I want to take action, but I need help. Because only if I do it, then the change will happen. If the idea of a change also only happens inside your head, It goes about nothing. Because nothing is really learned until habits change. So those action that is done, that is created, and that is consistently done will become the person's new habits. And that's where the real change will happen. So let me go through the 3 ABC of change. The first one is awareness before change. Second one is acceptance before change. And the final one is action brings change. Thank you very much. We're moving on to another part of managing performance. Something called positive reinforcement. Now, all of you know, I'm sure, that performance is influenced by consequences, which means performance, whether good or bad, will depend after that on what happens to the performer after that particular performance.